Hello everyone and welcome to another Premier Injuries Daily Update where I attempt to cover the COVID landscape that is blighting game week 17. Now, before we kick off ahead of game week 18, I look at some of tonight's fixtures. It is now 2 p.m. on Thursday, so we do have a number of scheduled games to take place. I'll stress, as it currently stands, we know that Leicester and Tottenham game has now been called off at the King Power. Both teams had put a request into the Premier League earlier this week to have this game cancelled. So many are now questioning why the Premier League has actually postponed this game at such a late stage. The reason being, Leicester have had at least 2 more positive tests to go with their already growing injury and illness list. I think that puts them up to about 11 or 12 players currently sidelined. So that in itself puts their game in doubt ahead of this weekend. Leicester are due to play Everton at Goodison Park. With regards to some of other tonight's games, Chelsea, they host Everton. Chelsea have at least had 3 positive tests, possibly 4 unnamed players. As it currently stands, that game will go ahead. We will see N'Golo Kante back with the group. They've only got 2 injuries, so that means 6 out for Chelsea. Mateo Kovacic is expected to return to the group tomorrow, but in terms of his fitness, given that lengthy absence that he had prior to COVID, it's highly unlikely that he'll be ready for the first team. Everton themselves, of course, they're managing their own injury problems. They've got around about 8 or 9 players currently on the injury list, a couple of long-term absentees there, Andros Townsend being one. Seamus Coleman will have a late fitness test. He picked up a foot problem at Selhurst Park on Sunday. There's a little bit of bone bruising there and some soft tissue damages. Elsewhere, Liverpool and Newcastle, relatively quiet, so no news is good news with regards to that. As it currently stands, there's been no positive cases in either camp. Newcastle without Federico Fernandez, he's the latest player to join Paul Dummett in the Newcastle treatment room. It looks like he's going to miss those festive fixture period, but Roberto Firmino should be back for Liverpool tonight. He's been working on his fitness after recovering from that recurrence of a hamstring injury. Now, elsewhere, let's have a look at what we've got ahead of this weekend. And like I say, there are big question marks here. Watford, their game was called off against Burnley late in the day on Wednesday evening. That was because of positive COVID test meant that they didn't have enough first team players to fulfill that fixture. Now, given the fact that we have such a tight turnaround, I think it got to bring into question. Common sense would say, that there's a major flag over their game and they're due to play Crystal Palace at Vicarage Road this week. Again, we're waiting for an update from the Premier League. Manchester United, we've seen the players return to Carrington on Wednesday morning. That's been closed for a couple of days following the outbreak, had a bit of a deep clean. Now, initially, that game against Brentford that was called off, United had up to 19 members of playing staff and backroom team that's tested positive. Following their return, they've also announced that they had a few more positive tests. So again, this throws their fixture this weekend in major doubt. Now, we'll have to, like I say, this landscape is ever changing and it's evolving. And a lot of questions I get are with regards to, what are the rules from the Premier League in terms of making these decisions with regards to should the match go ahead or not. Now, the reason the league state that it's dealt with on a case-by-case basis, because it doesn't purely come down to the number of players absent. Last week, for example, we seen the Tottenham game postponed when they had 6 or 7 players missing, whereas Leicester went ahead and they had up to 11 at one point. And the reason being, there are other influencing factors with regards to that. One might be, who it's actually affecting first and foremost. So is it all first team players? Is it some of the backroom staff? Are there just players in a certain position? So for example, if 1, 2, or possibly 3 goalkeepers were struck down, then the Premier League would be likely to postpone that. Also, access to facilities. How have the team been able to train and prepare ahead of that match? All of these things are taken into consideration when making those decisions on whether they should allow that game to go ahead or whether it should be postponed. Another one in major doubt this weekend, and we've already heard from Thomas Frank on Thursday morning. They had 9 players identified as positive COVID tests as late as Wednesday night. After submitting new tests on Thursday morning, they've got another further 4 people. So that's 13 people sailing through the virus. Add that on top of their existing injury list, and you can see their squad is looking very threadbare. Thomas Frank is actually advocating that this round of fixtures should be, wiped completely, and also the Carabao Cup game, to give teams opportunities to maybe address the issues in the training ground, have 7 to 10 days clear before the Boxing Day fixtures. We'll wait and see, if anything changes with that regard. But like I say, as it currently stands, all of these fixtures are going ahead in game week 18. Elsewhere, we've heard from Marcelo Bielsa, of course, on the back of that heavy loss at the Etihad on Tuesday evening, 7-0, if you somehow missed it. To compound matters further for Leeds, they lost Firpo. He picked up his 5th caution of the campaign. That rules him out of the next game. But there's also 2 injuries in that game as well. Jamie Shackleton was forced off in and around that 38th minute with an Achilles issue, and Dan James replaced at half-time because of a muscular problem. I believe that was maybe adductor and a groin issue. So both of those players are out, although we don't have any kind of definitive timeline on when they could potentially be back. For Burnley, Maxwell Cornet, he's managing a thigh problem that forced him off at St James's Park a couple of weeks back. That's one to watch. It's touch and go. Sean Dyche won't take any risks with this one. He's got the likes of Jay Rodriguez and Matai Vidra who could play up alongside Chris Wood. In addition to that, Sean Dyche confirms that he does have 1 positive COVID test for a member of his playing staff, but there are others of the backroom team who have tested positive. So that's it for now. We will have 1 or 2 updates, particularly as we approach a deadline, and hopefully we will have a deadline. And if there's anything big and breaking, we will look to produce another video. So make sure you're subscribed, and as soon as those videos drop, you will be notified straight away. But for now, that is your COVID-ridden update. Hope it's helped a little bit. Keep your fingers crossed, and it'll be great if things settle down as we look ahead. But for now, bye-bye.